The moment humanity lost its freedom, the galaxy didn't survive Earth's Wrath Part 1. The Fall of Terra. The ships came on Tuesday morning. Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Station and watched the sky fill with shadows. There were thousands of them, maybe millions. Each one was larger than any vessel humanity had ever built. They blocked out the sun over every major city on Earth at the same time. "Commander," said Lieutenant Park, his voice shaking, "we are receiving a transmission." Elena did not look away from the window. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating fast. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for centuries. They had imagined friendly aliens who would share knowledge and technology. They had imagined enemies who would test their strength. They had never imagined this. The transmission played across every screen on Earth, every phone, every television, every computer. The face that appeared was reptilian, with scales the color of dried blood and eyes like yellow diamonds. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, perfect Mandarin, perfect Spanish, perfect every language at once. "People of Earth," the creature said, "I am Admiral Korith Vaughn of the Voldari hegemony. For 60,000 years, we have maintained order in this region of space. We have watched your species grow. We have watched you split the atom. We have watched you reach for the stars. And we have decided that you will never reach them." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "Your rapid advancement is a threat to galactic stability," the Admiral continued. "A species that moved from primitive combustion engines to nuclear fusion in 200 years cannot be trusted with freedom. You will serve the hegemony. Your engineers will build our ships. Your soldiers will fight our wars. Your children will learn to forget what Earth once was. This is not a negotiation. This is a notification." The transmission ended. For exactly 3 seconds, the world was silent. Then the firing began. Elena watched the first missiles launch from bases across the globe. Thousands of them, carrying enough nuclear payload to destroy continents. They rose toward the alien ships like angry fireflies. They never arrived. Blue light flashed from the alien vessels. Every missile vanished. Not destroyed. Not deflected. Simply gone. Erased from existence. What kind of technology? Lieutenant Park whispered. Elena knew then that humanity had already lost. But she also knew that humanity would fight anyway. That was what humans did. "All stations," she said into her communicator. "This is Commander Vasquez. Launch everything we have. Empty the arsenals. If we go down fighting." The next 6 hours were the longest in human history. The Voldari did not simply defeat Earth's defenses. They erased them. Every military base, every naval fleet, every Air Force installation, every satellite, every weapon of any significance. The aliens used beams of light that cut through steel and stone like they were made of paper. They used bombs that left no craters, only empty spaces where cities used to be. Washington, D.C. was gone in the first hour. Beijing in the second. Moscow, London, Paris, Tokyo all gone before the sunset. 8 billion people watched their world burn. Elena's station was one of the last to fall. She stood at her post as the walls melted around her. She had one final task to complete. "Recording," she said into the emergency broadcast system. Her voice was calm. She had accepted death. She had not accepted defeat. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. If anyone survives what is coming, I need you to listen carefully. The creatures who have done this to us are called the Voldari. Remember that name. Remember everything they do. Remember every person they kill, every city they destroy, every child they take from their parents. Write it down. Pass it to your children. Make them pass it to their children. The ceiling above her began to glow orange. She had seconds left. They think they have won today. They think they have broken us. They are wrong. Humanity does not break. Humanity does not forget. And humanity does not forgive. One day, we will make them pay for this. Every last one of them. Every drop of blood they have spilled today will cost them a river. The heat was unbearable now. Elena's uniform was starting to smoke. Remember everything, she said. Forgive nothing. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, the Voldari hegemony celebrated. The 12 elder species who had ruled the Orion Arm for 60 millennia raised their cups and praised Admiral Van for his efficiency. The human threat had been neutralized in a single day. A new slave race had been acquired. Life would continue as it always had. On Earth, the survivors crawled from the rubble. They were farmers and teachers and doctors and children. They were the ones who lived far from military targets, in small villages and remote mountains and tiny islands. They numbered in the millions a fraction of what humanity had been. The Voldari landing ships came for them the next morning. Soldiers in black armor marched through the ruins of human civilization, rounding up survivors, fitting them with metal collars that sent painful shocks through their bodies if they disobeyed. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, stood in the ashes of what had been New York City. A Voldari soldier approached her and activated his translator device. You belong to the hegemony now, the soldier said. You will work. You will obey. You will forget your old life. The girl looked up at him with eyes that held no tears. Only fire. I will remember, she said. The soldier laughed. Remember what? Your dead world? Your dead people? In 100 years, no human will even know what Earth was. The girl said nothing. She did not need to. She would prove him wrong. Her name was Maya Chun, and one day, her grandson would bring the entire galaxy to its knees. But that day was still 100 years away. For now, the chains were fastened, and the long darkness began. The moment humanity lost its freedom, the galaxy didn't survive Earth's Wrath Part 2. The century of chains. Marcus Chun was born in chains. His grandmother Maya had told him stories about Earth before the fall. She spoke of blue skies and green forests and cities that touched the clouds. She spoke of freedom. The Marcus did not truly understand what that word meant. He had never tasted it. Marcus worked in the shipyards of Voldari Prime, the same as his mother had, the same as her mother had before her. He was assigned there at age 12, when the overseers decided his hands were steady enough to work on delicate machinery. By 20, he had become one of the best engineers in the facility. By 30, the Voldari trusted him with their most advanced technology. That was their first mistake. You are clever for a human, Overseer Krath told him one day, watching Marcus repair a damaged FTL drive. Almost intelligent. Marcus kept his eyes down and his voice humble. You honor me with your words, Overseer. Inside, he was memorizing every component of the drive. Every wire. Every circuit. Every line of alien code that made faster-than-light travel possible. Later that night, in the cramped quarters, he shared with 30 other human workers. He would write it all down in a code that only other humans could read. This was the way of the long memory. The organization had no leaders, number headquarters, no membership lists. It was simply an understanding that passed from human to human across the galaxy. Remember everything. Write it down. Pass it on. One day, we will need this knowledge. For 100 years, humanity did exactly what the Voldari expected. They worked. They obeyed. They died in the millions, sent to fight wars on distant planets against enemies of the hegemony. The Voldari considered humans perfect soldiers, tough enough to survive harsh conditions, smart enough to follow orders. and numerous enough that their losses did not matter. What the Valdari did not understand was that every human soldier who fought in their wars was also watching, learning, mapping. Sergeant Yuki Tanaka served in the Valdari military for 40 years. She fought in 17 campaigns across the Orion Arm. She was promoted to the highest rank any human had ever achieved in the hegemony forces. Her commanders praised her loyalty and skill. They never suspected that every night she transmitted detailed reports to the long memory. Troop positions, supply routes, defensive weaknesses, the locations of weapon caches and shipyards and communication hubs. Everything the Valdari thought was secret, Yuki made sure humanity knew. Why do you fight so hard for them? A young human soldier asked her once as they cleaned their weapons after a battle. Yuki smiled. It was not a kind smile. I am not fighting for them, she said. I am learning how to kill them. The young soldier stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly and returned to his work. He understood. On Earth, now called Mining Colony 7, human children were taught that their ancestors had been primitive savages. Their teachers, all Valdari, told them that the hegemony had saved humanity from itself. They learned to speak the Valdari language. They learned to worship the Valdari gods. They learned to be grateful for their chains. But at night, in hidden places, other teachers gathered them. Old men and women who still remembered the stories their grandparents had told them. They spoke in whispers, in the old human languages that the Valdari had tried to destroy. There was a woman named Elena Vasquez, they would say. She was a warrior. On the day the sky burned, she sent a message to all of humanity. Do you want to know what she said? The children would nod, their eyes wide in the darkness. She said, remember everything. Forgive nothing. And the children would repeat the words. Burning them into their hearts. Marcus Chun discovered the flaw by accident. He was 53 years old when it happened. He had spent his entire life studying Valdari technology, and he knew their FDL network better than most Valdari engineers did. The network was the backbone of the hegemony. It allowed instant communication across thousands of light years. Without it, the Valdari could not coordinate their fleets, their trade, their government. Without it, the hegemony would be blind. One night, running calculations on his secret datapad, Marcus found the weakness. A specific quantum frequency that could collapse the entire network if broadcast from enough points simultaneously. It would not damage the hardware. It would simply shut everything down. The hegemony would go silent. His hands shook as he checked his math again and again. He was not wrong. He had found the key to humanity's salvation, but the key was useless without preparation. Without ships. Without weapons. Without soldiers ready to strike the moment the network fell. Marcus knew that he would not live to see freedom. His generation was too old, too watched, too few. But his children might. Or his grandchildren. He contacted the long memory through the usual channels. The message was simple. I have found something. Begin building. We need 100 years. The response came back within a week. Understood. The long memory is now the long preparation. In secret shipyards, hidden in asteroid fields across the galaxy, human workers began to change their priorities. They still built ships for the Valdari, but they also built ships for themselves. Small vessels at first, hidden in the countless pieces of space debris that floated between the stars. Then larger ones. Then warships. Sergeant Yuki Tanaka, now retired from active service, used her connections to smuggle weapons. Tons of them, piece by piece, over decades. Other humans stole technology, medicines, food supplies, everything an army would need. On the night before the 100th anniversary of the silencing, an old woman named Maya Chun closed her eyes for the last time. She was 107 years old. the last survivor of the original fall of Earth. Her grandson Marcus sat beside her, holding her wrinkled hand. "Did we do enough?" she whispered. Marcus leaned close to her ear. "We did, grandmother. Tomorrow, we stop pretending." Maya smiled. It was the first genuine smile of her life. "Elena would be proud," she said. Then she was gone. Marcus Chun stood slowly. He looked at the communication device hidden beneath his bed. In 12 hours, he would send a signal. That signal would trigger events across the galaxy. Thousands of humans in thousands of positions would receive their orders. 100 years of patience was about to end. The galaxy had forgotten what humanity was capable of. They were about to remember. The moment humanity lost its freedom, the galaxy didn't survive Earth's wrath. Part 3. The day the stars went dark at exactly midnight. Galactic Standard Time. The universe went silent. Supreme Hegemon Thulver was in his throne room when it happened. One moment, screens around him displayed information from 12,000 star systems. Trade reports, military movements, entertainment broadcasts. The next moment, every screen showed the same thing. Nothing. "What is this?" Thulver demanded. His scales, normally a proud shade of emerald, had gone pale with confusion. His advisors scrambled to find answers. They checked the local systems. They checked the backup systems. They checked the backup systems for the backup systems. Everything was working perfectly. The problem was not with their equipment. The problem was that no signal was coming from anywhere else in the galaxy. The Valdari FTL communication network, the greatest achievement of their civilization, had simply stopped working. How is this possible? The Supreme Hegemon roared. This technology has functioned perfectly for 20,000 years. No one had an answer. On the other side of the galaxy, Marcus Chun sat in his tiny room on a mining station and watched his countdown timer reach 0. His signal had worked. The quantum pulse had propagated through the network exactly as he had calculated. The hegemony was blind. He closed his eyes and spoke words he had waited his entire life to say, "Begin." The word traveled through human communication channels that the Valdari had never known existed. Small devices built from stolen parts, hidden in walls and floors and pieces of furniture across 1,000 worlds. From ship to ship. From station to station. From one human heart to another. Begin. Begin. On Valdari Prime, a human janitor named Thomas walked into the security center of the Central Military Command. He had cleaned this room every day for 30 years. The guards knew his face. They barely looked up when he entered. Thomas pulled a weapon from his cleaning cart and shot them both before they could react. He was not alone. Across the station, in every corridor and every room, other humans were doing the same thing. Cooks, mechanics, servants, the invisible people who had kept the hegemony running for a century were now tearing it apart. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On military stations, on trading posts, on the homeworlds of the 12 elder species. Everywhere humans had been sent as slaves. They rose up as soldiers. But the true surprise came from the darkness between the stars. Admiral Yuki Tanaka, granddaughter of the sergeant who had mapped the hegemony's weaknesses, stood on the bridge of the HSS Remembrance. The ship was massive, built in secret over 40 years in an asteroid field that the Valdari had never bothered to survey. It was crewed entirely by humans who had been born in hiding, trained from childhood for this moment, and it was not alone. 200 warships emerged from the shadows. The Black Fleet, humanity called it. Each vessel was built using Valdari technology, but improved by human engineers who had spent generations perfecting designs that their masters thought they were too stupid to understand. All ships report ready. "Admiral," said Captain Rodriguez, her first officer, Yuki nodded slowly. She was 62 years old. She had spent her entire life preparing for this day. Now that it had arrived, she felt strangely calm. Set course for Corvallis, she said. Maximum speed. We have a debt to repay. On Valdari Prime, Supreme Hegemon Thalvar was beginning to understand the scale of the disaster. Reports were coming in by emergency messenger drone, the only form of communication still working. Every report brought worse news. The humans have taken the orbital defense stations, one messenger said. The shipyards at Krathsol are burning, said another. We have lost contact with the 7th Fleet, the 12th Fleet, the 19th Fleet. Thal. VR could not believe what he was hearing. How is this possible? They are slaves, animals. They have no organization, no resources, no weapons. A new messenger arrived, running so fast he nearly fell. Supreme Hegemon. A human fleet has entered the Valdari home system. 200 ships. They are heading for Corvallis. 200 ships? Thalvar laughed, though there was no humor in the sound. We have thousands of ships. Destroy them. We cannot, Supreme Hegemon. Our communication network is down. We cannot coordinate our forces. And the humans, they seem to know exactly where all of our defensive positions are. They are avoiding them, going around them, heading straight for the homeworld. Thalvar stared at the messenger for a long moment. Then he sank back onto his throne. How? He whispered. How did they do this? In a prison cell on Valdari Prime, a captured human officer named Sarah Kim smiled through her broken teeth. She had been caught during the initial uprising. The Valdari had tortured her for hours, demanding to know how the network had been disabled. She had not told them anything useful. Now, 2 guards dragged her before the Supreme Hegemon himself. Thalvar looked at her with pure hatred. You will tell me how this was done, he said. You will tell me how to stop it. Sarah laughed. Blood dripped from her lips. You want to know how? She said, you taught us. Every lesson you gave us over the past century, we learned it well. You taught us to be patient. We waited 100 years. You taught us to work together. We built an army right under your nose. You taught us that mercy was weakness. She looked directly into the Supreme Hegemon's eyes. Thank you for the education. Thalvar nodded to his guards. They raised their weapons. Kill her, he said. Sarah Kim died with a smile on her face. Through the windows of the throne room, she could see flashes of light in the sky. The Black Fleet had arrived. Outside, the first bombs began to fall on Corvallis. They were not ordinary explosives. Each one carried a message written in every Valdari language. We remember. The Supreme Hegemon watched his world begin to burn. For the first time in his long life, he felt something he had never felt before. Fear. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Admiral Yuki Tanaka gave her next order. This is just the beginning, she said. By the time we are done, the hegemony will be nothing but ash and memory. Humanity has come to collect what is owed. The stars burned, and the galaxy trembled. The moment humanity lost its freedom, the galaxy didn't survive Earth's Wrath Part 4. The burning of the Orion Arm General Solomon. Okonkwo stood before the United Human Command and spoke the words that would echo through history. We are not here to conquer, he said. His voice was deep and calm, like a river that had carved mountains over thousands of years. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to make sure that what happened to Earth can never happen again. To anyone, the officers before him nodded. They understood. Issue Directive 0, Solomon continued. No Valdari military vessel will be captured. No Valdari military installation will be occupied. Everything will burn. We will not stop until the hegemony exists only in the memories of those who will learn to fear us. The order went out across the stars, and humanity began its terrible work. The Kethra were the first of the elder species to fall. They were insectoid creatures, six-legged and cold-blooded, who had served as the hegemony's diplomats and negotiators for millennia. When the human fleet entered their system, they immediately opened communication channels. "We surrender," the Kethra Queen said, her antennae trembling. "We will give you whatever you want. Resources, technology, our complete submission. Just spare our people." Admiral Tanaka listened to the message in silence. Then she gave her response. "The Kethra voted in favor of the silencing of Earth. You celebrated when our cities burned. You took our children to work in your factories. Now you offer surrender?" She paused. The Kethra Queen waited, hoping for mercy. "Surrender denied," Tanaka said. "There will be no negotiation with those who showed us none." The Kethra homeworld burned for 3 days. When the fires finally died, nothing remained but glass and ash. News of the destruction spread across the galaxy. The other elder species watched in growing horror as humanity cut a path of destruction through the Orion Arm. They had expected a rebellion. They had expected demands, negotiations, the kind of political maneuvering that had defined galactic conflicts for thousands of years. What they got was annihilation. The Solans were an aquatic species whose entire civilization existed beneath the waves of their ocean world. They had been responsible for designing the neural compliance chips that the Valdari implanted in human children, devices that caused agonizing pain if the wearer had thoughts of rebellion. When the human fleet arrived, the Thessalans sent a message offering reparations. They would pay any price, they said. They would give humanity all of their wealth. They would even help humans hunt down the remaining Valdari forces. General Okonkwo read their offer carefully. Then he ordered the deployment of thermal bombs designed to boil oceans. "You put machines in the heads of our children," he said as the bombs fell. "You made them scream whenever they dreamed of freedom. There is no price high enough to pay for that." The Lysolan ocean steamed and bubbled. Within hours, an entire species that had existed for 100,000 years was gone. The crystallines, a silicon-based species who lived in the vacuum of space, tried a different approach. They simply fled, abandoning their asteroid colonies and retreating to the far edges of the galaxy. It did not matter. Human ships followed them. "You cannot run far enough," Captain Rodriguez transmitted to the fleeing crystalline fleet. "You cannot hide well enough. Humanity has very good memories. We remember that your scientists designed the work camps where our people died by the millions. We have a list. Your species is on it." The crystallines were reduced to scattered fragments, drifting through the void between galaxies. A few might have survived. Humanity did not care enough to make sure. Let them live in fear for the rest of eternity. Supreme Hegemon Thalver watched the reports come in from his bunker deep beneath the surface of Valdari Prime. Every day brought news of another lost world, another destroyed fleet, another elder species begging for mercy and receiving none. "How do we stop them?" he asked his generals. "There must be a way." His generals had no answer. The human fleet seemed to know every weakness, every blind spot, every vulnerability in Valdari defenses. 100 years of patient observation had given humanity a perfect map of their enemies' weaknesses. Perhaps, one advisor suggested carefully, we could appeal to the other galactic powers. The Andromeda Coalition, the Sagittarius Confederation. If they see what humanity is doing, surely they will intervene. Thalver laughed bitterly. "You think they will help us?" "They are watching from the sidelines, learning the same lesson that humanity is teaching us. Do not enslave other species. Do not underestimate those you consider beneath you. If anything, they are grateful that we are the ones being destroyed instead of them." He was right. Across the galaxy, Other civilizations watched the burning of the Orion Arm with a mixture of horror and relief. They had always feared the Voldari hegemony. Now they feared humanity more. But they also knew that as long as they had never harmed Earth, they were safe. The destruction continued for 5 years. System by system, the hegemony crumbled. The great fleets that had once terrified 1,000 worlds were hunted down and destroyed. The trading routes that had connected the elder species for millennia went dark. The political alliances that had maintained order in the Orion Arm collapsed into chaos. Finally, only Voldari Prime remained. General Okonkwo stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the world where the conquest of Earth had been planned. It was a beautiful planet, with purple forests and silver oceans, home to 12 billion Voldari citizens, the heart of an empire that had ruled for 60,000 years. "General," his communications officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is Supreme Hegemon Thalvar. He wishes to negotiate terms of surrender." Solomon Okonkwo considered the request for exactly 3 seconds. "Tell him this," he said. 100 years ago, Admiral Korath Von told humanity that our conquest was not a negotiation, but a notification. Today, I am returning the courtesy. Their destruction is not a negotiation. It is a notification. He turned to his weapons officer. "Begin the final bombardment." The sky above Voldari Prime filled with fire, and the species that had enslaved humanity for a century finally understood the true cost of their arrogance. Some would survive, in bunkers deep underground or in ships that managed to flee. Humanity let them go. They were no longer a threat. They were a warning. When the fires died and the smoke cleared, the Voldari hegemony was gone. 60,000 years of history erased in 5 years of vengeance. The galaxy had learned a lesson it would never forget, and humanity was just getting started. The moment humanity lost its freedom, the galaxy didn't survive Earth's wrath part. 5. The New Order, the final battle, was not really a battle at all. General Solomon Okonkwo led the assault on Corvalith personally. His shuttle descended through clouds of smoke and ash, landing in what had once been the grand plaza of the Imperial Palace. Around him, the ruins of Voldari civilization stretched in every direction. Broken towers, shattered monuments. The corpses of an empire. Supreme Hegemon Thalvar was waiting for him. The last ruler of the hegemony looked nothing like the proud figure who had appeared on screens across the galaxy for decades. His scales were gray and cracked. His eyes, once bright with arrogance, were dull with defeat. He stood alone in the rubble, surrounded by human soldiers who kept their weapons trained on him. "So," Thalvar said, "the animals have come to finish their work." Solomon walked forward slowly. He was a tall man, with skin the color of dark earth and hair gone white with age. He had been born in a work camp. He had lost his parents, his siblings, his wife, and 2 of his children to the hegemony. He had more reason to hate than almost any human alive, and yet his voice was calm when he spoke. "You still do not understand, do you?" he said. "After everything that has happened, you still think this is about animals and masters, about superior and inferior species." Thalvar hissed. "What else is there? The strong rule. The weak serve. This is the law of the universe." "No," Solomon said. "It is not. That is the law you created. A law that allowed you to sleep peacefully while billions suffered. And now that law has brought you here, to the ashes of your world." He gestured to the ruins around them. "This is what your law built. This is its final result. Congratulations." Thalvar's face twisted with rage. "You think you are better than us? You have killed billions. Entire species have been erased because of you. You are no different from what we were." "Perhaps," Solomon agreed. Perhaps we have become monsters. But we did not choose to become this. You made us. Every child you took from their parents. Every worker you beat to death. Every soldier you sent to die in your wars. You taught us that mercy was weakness. You taught us that the strong do whatever they wish to the weak. Well, now we are the strong, and we have done exactly what you taught us to do. He stepped closer until he was face to face with the supreme hegemon. But here is the difference between us. We are choosing to stop. Thalver stared at him in confusion. What? Solomon turned to his soldiers. Take him to the transport. He will face trial. Trial? Thalver laughed. You are going to pretend to have laws now. After everything you have done? Yes, Solomon said simply. We are. The trial of Supreme Hegemon Thalver took place on Earth. The planet had been rebuilt over the years of war. The cities were not as grand as they had once been, but they were growing. Forests were returning to lands that had been strip-mined by the Voldari. Children played in streets that had been paved over the ashes of the old world. Thalver was brought before a panel of human judges. He expected torture. He expected a quick execution. He did not expect what actually happened. An old woman entered the courtroom. She moved slowly, supported by a walking frame, but her eyes were sharp. The guards helped her to a seat facing the Voldari prisoner. Do you know who I am? She asked. Thalver looked at her with contempt. Another human. You all look the same to me. The woman smiled. My name is Elena Vasquez. 106 years ago, I was the commander of the United Earth Defense Force. I sent the last message from Earth before your forces captured me. Thalver's eyes widened. He had heard of this woman. The story said she had died on the day of the silencing. The Voldari medical technology kept me alive, Elena continued. They wanted to use me as an example. A broken symbol of human defeat. For 100 years, I watched and waited. And now I am here to deliver your sentence. Death then, Thalver said. Get it over with. No. Elena shook her head slowly. 100 years ago, you took our freedom because you feared what we might become. You were right to be afraid. But we will not do to you what you did to us. That would make us what you always believed were. She looked at the judges, who nodded. The surviving Voldari will be given a single world. A cold, small planet at the edge of the galaxy. You will be allowed to rebuild your civilization there. You will not have starships. You will not have weapons. You will have only what you need to survive. Thalver could not believe what he was hearing. You are letting us live? We are giving you a choice, Elena said. Learn to live in peace with the galaxy, and you will be left alone. Attempt to rebuild your empire, try to harm another species, and we will finish what we started. We have very long memories, Hegemon, and we have all the time in the universe. She stood, though the effort clearly pained her. Remember this mercy, she said. It cost us everything to give it. Do not waste it. The Galactic Council was formed 1 year later. It was the first true government of the galaxy. Representatives from every known species gathered on a space station orbiting Earth. They came not because they trusted humanity, but because they feared what would happen if they did not. Ambassador David Chun, grandson of Marcus Chun, who had discovered the network flaw, addressed the first assembly. He was a young man, born after the liberation, one of the first generation of humans to know freedom from birth. My father once told me something, he said. He said that humanity's greatest strength was not our rage. It was our patience. We waited 100 years under chains. We can wait forever if we must. He looked around the assembly hall at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. The rules of this council are simple. Slavery is forbidden. Any species that enslaves another will be destroyed. Aggressive conquest is forbidden. Any species that attacks another without cause will be destroyed. Threatening Earth is forbidden. I think you can guess what happens then. A ripple of nervous movement passed through the alien delegates. But these rules are not meant to frighten you, David continued. They are meant to protect you. For 60,000 years, the strong did whatever they wished to the weak. That era is over. From this day forward, the galaxy will learn a new way. The strong will protect the weak. The advanced will help the primitive. And no child of any species will ever again be born into chains. He smiled. It was a warm smile, without threat. We could have destroyed you all. We chose not to. Now we are asking you to join us in building something better. Not an empire ruled by fear, but a community built on respect. It will not be easy. We will make mistakes. But we will learn from them, just as we learned from our suffering. He raised his hand in greeting. Welcome to the new galaxy. May we never return to the old one. Across 10,000 worlds, species who had never heard of Earth learned a new proverb in the centuries that followed. It was taught to children as a warning and a lesson. It was repeated by diplomats and generals and traders who dealt with humans. Let sleeping humans lie. And on Earth, in a small garden near the memorial for the 8 billion who died in the silencing, an old woman sat in the sunlight. Elena Vasquez was 108 years old. She would not live much longer, but that was all right. She had lived long enough to see freedom return. A little girl ran up to her, chasing a butterfly. Are you the famous commander? The girl asked. Elena smiled. I was once. A long time ago. My teacher says you sent a message to everyone when the bad aliens came. What did you say? Elena looked up at the sky. It was blue again. The forests around them were green. Somewhere out there, among the stars, humanity was building a future that she had only dreamed of. I said to remember everything, Elena answered, and to forgive nothing. But you let the bad aliens live, the girl said, confused. Teacher said you could have killed them all. Yes, Elena agreed. We could have. Why did you not? Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached out and touched the girl's cheek gently. Because revenge would have made us just like them, she said. And we did not suffer for 100 years just to become what we hated. We suffered so that you could be free, so that you could grow up in a galaxy where no one is born in chains. That is worth more than revenge. That is worth everything. The girl thought about this for a while. Then she nodded, as if she understood. Okay, she said. Can I go catch butterflies now? Elena laughed. Yes, little one. Go catch butterflies. You have your whole life ahead of you. The girl ran off into the garden. Elena watched her go, then closed her eyes and let the sun warm her face. Somewhere out there, among the stars, the galaxy was learning to be kind. It was enough. It was finally enough.